We are live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar that we are sharing jointly with the Forth team. So this is a joint AESP Forth webinar for this month. And the focus today is on utility-driven programs expanding EV access for low and medium income households. Excited to be here and excited for our amazing panelists. We have moderating today a joint board member, Pam Fann. She's with both AESP and Forth as board members, and excited to see how she positions this discussion. I know she's going to do a great job. And then speakers today, we have Lydia Krefta with PG&E, Karan Patel with, I'm never going to get this right, Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, and then Amy Atchley with Austin Energy. All right, excited to be here today, and I'll turn it back over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have this joint webinar and for this webinar to be kicking off our 2025 webinar season. My name is Simbiat Yusuf Muller. I'm the event manager at Forth, and we have a few announcements and updates from the Forth team before we get into our content for the day. And Jen, feel free to turn off your camera and go off stage. Attendees, we ask that you please submit your questions via the attendee chat. The webinar slides, as well as the recording and additional resources, will be sent to you all shortly after the presentation. So if you're missing anything, we will send all of the resources out. And if you have a question through the webinar, submit them in the attendee chat, and we will get through them after all of the presentations during our Q&A. We have some exciting presentations and exciting conversations. And for those that are new to the Forth webinars, who are we? We are Forth on a mission to electrify transportation. We bring together people to create solutions that reduce pollutions and barriers. Our work is done in 5 focus areas, which is policy, access to electric cars, access to charging, access to emerging modes, and events and partnerships. If you'd like to learn more about the work we do at Forth, we will be dropping a link to our website in the chat. And the work we do would not happen without the support of our members and sponsors. If you're interested in sponsorship opportunities, as you can see, AESP, please reach out to Rachel Haverkamp. Email is on screen, but she is our partnerships and membership manager. She has a lot of information, a lot of cool things happening within Forth and our members. Ooh, this is interesting. Save up to 30%. That is saving up to $500 when you use early adopter rates for the Roadmap Conference. The Roadmap Conference is happening October 14th through the 16th this year in Detroit, Michigan. Information about registration is in the chat, but don't miss, save. And also bring a group, bring your coworkers. You can save more when you take advantage of the group rates as well. And we are excited to announce the launch of the Mobility for All Scholarship with the Roadmap, in conjunction with the Roadmap Conference. This scholarship provides a travel stipend and a free complimentary pass to the Roadmap Conference. Applications will be accepted through May 2nd. So if you have any colleagues or any partners in the community-based organization space doing the work and bringing transportation electrification efforts to their communities, we want them at the Roadmap Conference. If you have any questions, we have a link dropped in the chat as well. And now I don't want to keep you all from the content any longer, and I'm going to have our moderator, Pamela Fann, join us.
Thank you so much, Simbiat. If I can have my panelists join the screen with me real quick so I can give them an introduction. But first of all, I'm Pamela Fann. My company is Integrated Solutions. I'm the founder and CEO. We're an energy services company that supports workforce development, project installation, and civic engagement. I am honored to serve on both the boards of AESP and Forth, so it's only befitting that I get to moderate this amazing panel. Thank you all for joining today. I see you're coming from a lot of wonderful places across the US here, so I've always wondered, what's in the mind of these utility folks when it comes to low to moderate income charging, and how are they getting past some of the barriers that are keeping them from expanding this work? A big part of my work is going into communities that are what I consider opportunity communities and developing clean transportation plans with them, and also looking at what are some of those barriers to entry for clean transportation and electric vehicles. So I'm excited today to hear from our panelists. We have Lydia Krefta, Director of Clean Energy Transportation for PG&E. We have Karan Patel, who is the Managing Director of Energy Solutions and Clean Energy for Rappahannock. And we have Amy Atchley, who is the EV Equity Development Manager at Austin Energy. So welcome you all. So first, all please stay on screen for me for a second. I would love for you to introduce yourselves or talk a little bit about yourselves, your roles with your organizations, and tell us your focus of work. So Lydia, first, can you tell us a little bit more about PG&E and your work within that organization?
Yes, hi everybody. Nice to virtually meet everyone. My name is Lydia Krefta. I'm the Director of Clean Energy Transportation for Pacific Gas and Electric. And our team's role is really to accelerate EV adoption broadly within our service territory. I'll go into it a little bit when I hop into my slides, but we have a goal of supporting 3 million EVs by 2030 in our service territory, and we're at a little over 700,000 today. And so our team is responsible for deploying a portfolio of pilots, programs, and initiatives really aimed at helping to accelerate equitable EV adoption for all folks within our service territory.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Karan, can you tell us more about your work with Rappahannock?
Sure, Pamela. Yeah, so I pronounce my name as Karan Patel. Culturally, it's pronounced Karan, but either work for me. I'm the managing director of Clean Energy and Energy Solutions at Rappahannock Electric. And so, for context, I know clean energy and energy solutions might be a little ambiguous, but basically, my department kind of covers everything from demand response programs to our electric vehicle pilot program that we currently have, as well as electrician services offering, and then also a lot of kind of emerging tech that's coming onto the utility system. So whether it's residential battery storage, microgrids, kind of so on and so forth, V2G, also something being discussed a lot. All that kind of comes to my group to kind of figure out how we can kind of get these programs embedded within the organization. But a lot of what we do is programmatic and kind of member-facing development of member-facing programs.
Thank you so much, and thank you for correcting me on the pronunciation of your name. I think I've tried it about 4 times already through our conversations, and I'm still getting it wrong, but I appreciate that. And Amy, if you could tell us a little bit more about your work with Austin Energy.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you. My name is Amy Atchley. I am the EV Equity Development Manager at Austin Energy. We are the local public utility, local public power here in Austin, Texas. I'm on the electric vehicles and emerging technologies team, and the team has been functioning now for about 14 years, so it's a pretty mature team for electric vehicles. I just want to give you a little bit of history about how I got started in this industry. I've been with the team now for about 9 years and have a connection point with Forth, and in particular with Forth Roadmap, because that's where my job was born. My manager at the time was at the conference and met with 11th Hour Project, and they invited Austin Energy to apply for this resource grant for an environmental justice role. That was 9 years ago. And so I came from the nonprofit sector working on human-centered design programs to bring vulnerable communities essential things such as food, like with Meals on Wheels of Central Texas, and then working with youth at risk with music programs at MTV Networks. So they wanted to bring in someone with a background of that boots on the ground, working with communities in need, So that's really how my role got started. And ever since, I've been learning more and more every day about the changing technology. Super exciting. But I look forward to getting into a little bit more of the work when I give you a presentation with my slides. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Amy. And there was something that Amy said that resounded in my head. She said that she's been doing and working on environmental justice work for this organization for about 9 years, or at least the organization's been doing it for at least 9 years. And we know environmental justice work is just work that's been happening well over 50, 60 years. It was a part of the civil rights movement where environmental justice movement came from. So just to note, this is not something new. This is not something new. This is something that companies and organizations have been working on for a while now. But I love that you brought that up, and including Lydia mentioned with her role doing equity work. Again, this is not something new, and I love the fact that we're going to continue to see utilities pushing forward this work within the communities that are so deserving. And if you all have not noticed, on the screen here, we asked you to represent what sector you're coming from. So if you don't mind, if you can type in the chat, you can put the organizations that you're coming from, but we love to know what sector of the energy industry you're representing as well. So thank you for doing this poll for us. In addition to that, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put those questions in the chat. We're looking for those questions from you all, from our amazing panelists, and we'll try and get to those as well. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Speaking of questions, I have a question for my panelists, and this is also going to be a poll for our attendees here. Can you tell me what is your biggest challenge with charging infrastructure? Is it funding? Is it multifamily? Is it building codes? What are you seeing as your biggest challenges? And I'm going to start with Lydia with that question.
Okay, I might cheat a little bit and give you two biggest challenges, but it's all related to the infrastructure. So I think one is multifamily. We've had several programs where we're trying to deploy multifamily charging, and we're really trying to find ways to drive the costs down, right, of both from a utility side and from the customer side. We've had a couple of different pilot programs where we've tried this, and we've been able to drive the costs down, definitely some, but I think there's still opportunity for us to find innovative ways to really deploy low-cost multifamily charging at scale. And then the other kind of other side of the infrastructure coin, one of the things that we're really trying to understand is how can we build our grid to support charging, whether it's at multifamily or single-family homes, in a way that's most efficient and also kind of cost-effective, right? So that we can ensure that our electric rates continue to be affordable as folks adopt electric vehicles.
Thank you. Hopefully folks are taking notes. This is important. Karan, please let me know your answer to that question. What are some of your biggest challenges?
Yeah, similar to what Lydia mentioned, it's funding and make-ready cost. And I'll kind of dive into this a little bit with some of my slides. But we installed two electric vehicle chargers in a rural community, and we saw that the make-ready cost is making it very difficult for some of these projects to pencil. Because eventually, especially as an electric cooperative, we need to ensure that the project at least breaks even at some point. So we before prior to installing, we did do some financial analysis and kind of modeling and forecasting. And then we're seeing a slow and steady ramp up. And again, I'll kind of show some slides that kind of show this. But again, I think the make-ready costs and funding in some cases, especially grants, also helped a lot with kind of making some of these projects pencil. And I'm sure a lot of folks are kind of tracking grant world right now, and it's a little volatile. So I'd probably say that those are probably two biggest things that I've seen so far.
Thank you so much. And last but definitely not least, Amy.
Yeah, agree with my fellow panelist here, but I will say, just to kind of think about it a little bit differently, is I think kind of the biggest barrier is really this behavior shift, because one of the things we talked about, and this has been going on for quite some time, back and forth, is it the chicken or the egg? Do we build demand by putting in the infrastructure, or do we wait for that demand? And there's just simply not going to be the demand until we have the infrastructure in place. And so we have so many gaps in charging deserts, and it's in our underserved areas that really need to, that's where that funding needs to be directed in the Justice 40 areas. And we need to, provide a component to that, which is heavy on education, to create this sense of belonging and understand that this is a movement. And in a lot of ways, it's going to be happening with or without communities. So that's why this conversation is so important, because we're not going to be able to fully transition unless we are going through it with the lens of equity.
Thank you so much, Amy. And I love that you still reference the Justice 40 language there. So you all, that's just a hint to let you know this work is still progressing. We're still doing this work and thinking about communities and how we build equity into this work. And then I like the fact that you said also thinking through, like, for me, it's about building more empathetic people so we can build more empathetic programs, so we can look at how we're actually reaching our target audience differently. So thank you for that. So audience, question for you, and we have a poll, another poll for you. What is your biggest challenge in charging infrastructure? What have been some of the pain points for you? You can type it in the chat. I think we might have a poll question for that one too, Symbia, but if not, put your answer in the chat. But we love to know, what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys are facing? For me, and what I'm seeing in communities, it is the lack of funding and sometimes the lack of awareness. So as I mentioned, I've been doing clean transportation in community, in communities and with my organization for the past couple of years now. And many communities don't necessarily know or have the knowledge about all of the options that are available to them. We're not talking about maybe large municipalities. We're talking about small rural communities as well. So what's the right fit for them? So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the presentations right now. Lydia, you are up first to tell us a little bit more about PG&E's work and the IOU perspective.
Thank you. All right. So like I mentioned, I'm the Director of Clean Energy Transportation at PG&E Pacific Gas and Electric. And I think we can go to the next slide here. We'll show just a little bit of an overview of our service territory. So Pacific Gas and Electric, we serve basically everywhere from like just north of LA, Bakersfield area, all the way up to the northern border of California. So we're serving 16 million Californians, which is 1 in 20 Americans. So we have quite a large customer base. I think one of the cooler things that we have in our service territory is really the distribution of electric vehicles and distributed energy resources. So you can see here about 1 in 5 rooftop solar installations is in our service territory, and then 1 out of every 7 EVs on the road in the United States is plugging in our territory. And so that's about, as of 2024, we had about 712,000 electric vehicles plugging in every day in our service territory. And that number really ranges kind of based on where you are in our territory. Our territory, of course, is very diverse. And so in some of our counties, you'll see 1 in 2 almost new vehicles that are purchased are electric vehicles. And then in some other places, you'll see that's more like 1 in 10, 1 in 20. So there's a really big kind of dichotomy in terms of adoption when you look across our service territory. And a lot of that is driven by geography, right? Like rural versus urban areas, charging density, access to infrastructure, and kind of socioeconomics. So a lot of I'd say adoption in our service territory. I think a lot of work to be done to continue to drive that adoption and to ensure that that adoption is equitable across our service territory. We can go to the next slide. So our goal, like I mentioned before, is to serve 3 million EVs by 2030, and we think that puts us in our territory to be kind of on path to meet California's goal of 100% new zero-emission vehicle sales by 2035. And we've done some analysis in serving these 3 million EVs by 2030. We believe that we can leverage these EVs to actually drive affordability within our service territory. So we've looked at kind of a future state where we don't see the EV adoption we expect to see, we don't invest in EVs, and then we looked at this future state with 3 million EVs and considered the investment both in programs as well as like grid infrastructure that we think we would need to support those 3 million EVs. And we see in that future state with EVs, we see about a 5 to 7% bill reduction in 2030. And that's really because of the amount of kilowatt hours we're able to kind of drive on our system with this EV adoption, outpacing the amount of investment that we need to kind of put into the system, right? Because rates are essentially just at the most simplest manner, right? It's our total investment over the total amount of kilowatt hours that we're serving on the system. And so it's a really cool opportunity to help the state meet its emissions goals while also helping to drive affordability within our service territory. In addition to just with our goal of just accelerating EV adoption to hit those 3 million EVs in 2030, and of course we have goals beyond 2030 into 2040 of continued EV acceleration, we also see EVs as a valuable, flexible asset, and that means we see EVs as an opportunity for customers to provide basically home backup power, right, or to help provide grid resiliency. And when these EVs are providing flexibility and participating in these valuable use cases, that drives more value on our system, right? That allows us to invest in potentially less infrastructure. And then we're able to share that value with the customers who are participating in some of these flexible use cases. And so our goal is to serve 3 million EVs and to enable 550 megawatts of flexible load from those EVs. And we think we can leverage that kind of future state to drive down rates even more for all of our customers and really kind of realize this future where we're able to decarbonize our energy system at a cost to customers in terms of total energy wallet that's lower than today. And I think that that's a really exciting potential future that we're building a lot of our programs, pilots, and kind of portfolio and PG&E around. So in order to do this, we have a portfolio of programs, pilot, like I said, kind of strategic initiatives really to kind of drive this future. We have over $170 million right now committed either via approved programs or programs that we actually have in the market that are focused on driving residential EV adoption. And those programs include things like rebates for pre-owned electric vehicles, like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, some rebates for multifamily charging, deploying chargers in multifamily housing, as well as some approved programs to help drive down the cost of public charging for some of our income qualified customers. So a kind of wide portfolio of programs really meant to drive equitable EV adoption. And in that portfolio, at least 75% of our funding does go to what we call priority communities. And then we also have a substantial amount of dollars that are going towards just driving infrastructure deployment, right? Creating more access to infrastructure for all of our customers. And our programs range from programs that provide infrastructure for fleets to programs that provide infrastructure in our state parks, which is one of my favorite programs, just a super fun kind of area to install chargers, our schools, single family homes, multifamily homes, right? So we have kind of a wide range of programs that are really trying to increase access to infrastructure for all of our customers so that there is charging available across our service territory for customers. And again, with those programs, we do have a certain percentage, kind of varies by program, at least 25% in each program that is going to customers who live in priority communities in PG&E service territory as well. So that's just kind of like a broad overview of some of the work that we're doing, our portfolio, and I'm looking forward to digging into some of the key lessons learned that we have gotten so far with the panel after the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I loved everything that you were saying there. When I developed the EV Motorist Green Book, that's exactly the type of work that I was trying to uncover. It's like placemaking for EV charging in communities, in neighborhoods that need to see them the most. Thank you so much for that. Next, we have Karan. If you can please tell us from a cooperative perspective what this looks like for you all at Rappahannock.
Here we go. Next slide. Yeah, so today I'll kind of be focusing on RECom's public charging network, and that's offered through our Vividly Brighter charging platform. So if we go next slide. Great. So I'll kind of skip through this pretty quickly since I already introduced myself, but I guess the premise or kind of focus here is most of my kind of background is in system planning, distribution system planning, and distribution engineering. So I've spent some time in the consulting world, some time in the IOU world, as well as working for a clean energy startup. Skipped too far. So also just giving context about who Rappahannock Electric Cooperative is and kind of painting that picture. We're basically headquartered in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and our service territory is sandwiched between Fredericksburg and between Richmond, and we kind of serve as far west as the Blue Ridge Mountains and as far east as almost the Chesapeake Bay. So we have pretty wide, pretty broad service territory. We serve about 4,000 square miles, portions of 22 counties in Virginia, and about 180,000 meters. So from a cooperative scale, we're definitely on the larger side, but as you can imagine, from an IOU perspective, we're definitely pretty small. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned this with the intro, and kind of what I'll be focusing today is really around RECom's public charging network. And so for context, RECom is a wholly owned subsidiary of Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. And Vividly Brighter is a suite of energy innovations and kind of offerings to our membership. So as you can see, we have Vividly Brighter charging, upgrades, solar, as well as marketplace. And so our public charging network, as well as our EV program, resides within Vividly Brighter charging and within that offering. Yep. So I'll dive more into our public charging network that we're kind of deploying through RECom. So as I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier, but last summer, June of 2024, we installed level 2 chargers at 2 different locations. So one was the Louisa Art Center, and there's some pictures of the ribbon cutting there, and the other was at the Frosty's rail stop. And so in terms of the chargers that we installed and the infrastructure we basically put out at those 2 locations, we basically put 4 dual port level 2 chargers. There were ZEF units, 60 amp chargers. The chargers themselves were available 24/7, despite the fact that I think the Art Center was only open 3 hours a day. Sorry, and I think Frosty's is kind of a restaurant, so open mainly during the day and the evening. But irrespective, the chargers were available 24/7. One other thing that I think was key, we talked about funding a little bit earlier and kind of making some of these projects pencil, but I think identifying good site hosts, the ones that kind of view the chargers as not necessarily, an opportunity for them to get revenue share or things like that, but more so as an opportunity to tap into a different clientele and basically create a charging availability for some of their clientele who may want to come and spend some time at their location, provide them business, but then again creating that opportunity for individuals to kind of tap into this new market. We commissioned these in June of 2024, and we did have some supply chain issues that led to a 6-month delay. And also, I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier with make-ready costs, but in terms of the installation itself, we experienced about $20,000 of higher make-ready costs than we were initially expecting. So just want to kind of show some charging data, and the time scale for this is from June, from when the chargers were installed, June of 2024 to September 1st of 2024. Again, this is a sample data set, but all actual charging events at these locations and on these various chargers and ports. So as you can kind of see, again, with level 2, we kind of peaked in terms of revenue in one charging event at around $8, but as you can see, we kind of average around $2 to $3 per charging event. And as you can imagine, correlated to that is charging durations. Again, our longest charge time is about 3.5 hours. But again, we kind of average somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour for each of these charging events. And as we look to kind of grow our public charging network, again, I referenced grants a little bit with funding, and we do try to. REC is very active in the grant world, so we try to keep our kind of eyes peeled for any grant opportunities that may help kind of grow our public charging network. So we essentially have two various grants that we're working on right now. One is to install 2 chargers at 3 different locations in Virginia, and it's about 80% federal cost share, which again really helps us kind of pencil some of these projects. The other is basically 4 different locations, looking at installing 18 level 2 chargers, and again with the 55% federal cost share, that this really helps us have these projects pencil. And then as we look to grow our public charging network, so some of the areas that we're looking at, again, kind of wineries, breweries, destination charging events, or locations, I should say. But I really want to focus on multi-family complexes. We think that's a great opportunity for individuals who may not own the dwelling that they're in, or apartment complex, etc., but still be to kind of create more opportunities for individuals to kind of shift into the EV space, and essentially for us to install some of these EV chargers at these locations can really create more opportunities. But again, we're trying to target 2-hour plus sessions. Yep, I think that's all I had.
Thank you so much, Karan. And one of the things that you highlighted there was amusement parks. Again, this placemaking. I know in the EV Motorist Green Book, I also identified historic sites. If you're going to be in your car for a period of time, right, while you're charging on a level 2, you should be able to go get up, get out your car, walk around, especially if you're traveling with children. If you're by yourself, it needs to be somewhere that's safe. And these are things that community members want to hear. These are things that community members want to be a part of. And so, and I absolutely love, both you and Lydia both talked about the national parks. I think that national parks are a prime example of, when I go hiking, I'm in the mountains for usually a couple of hours. The only thing we have to think about is those idling fees, right? Because I can't run off if it's a 2-hour in and 2-hour out, that idling fee might be the thing that might keep me from wanting to charge there. But thank you so much for sharing that information with us. Amy, you're up next to give us that municipality perspective. Thank you so much for this perspective on this issue.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do my best to get through this lightning talk. It's a lot of content, but I thought it would be great to start with kind of the why, especially since I noticed we have a ton of utility people on this call. We all understand that electric vehicle infrastructure, charging electric fuel, has the potential to be one of the greatest revenue generators for the utility of the 21st century. That's a great thing for the city of Austin because we are public power. The more funding that is generated, revenue that's generated goes right back into our community, which means we can provide things like electric vehicle charging, public access, which means we can support our parks, which means that, we can create resilience hubs and we can support other public entities such as our public libraries. But there is another lens here, another focus that is fueling the work of my team, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So the city of Austin created a climate equity plan that was approved by our city council. And it was a program that really underscores best practices for human-centered design. And so the reason why I point that out is because we're not going to get there unless we are including people in the conversation and giving people, everyday people, vulnerable communities, community-based organizations, a spot at the table so that they can tell us how can we best design what is wanted and needed, so we can do this in collaboration with the community, not doing it to the community. And with this plan, City of Austin collected over 500 hours of feedback from the community, from regular everyday people that hadn't typically been involved in these conversations, to help us with this design. And so we're really tracking to get to net zero emissions by 2040. And what that means in Austin is that 40% of vehicle miles traveled on the road are electric by 2030. And I'm not just talking about individual ownership or drivership, but we're talking about other public transit as well. All right, oops. I wanted to show this again with the utility folks online, just to show you kind of our structure. We have a 5-pillar strategy that we work with. And even though, as you'll notice, you'll see equity and affordability has its own tab, we do really function with that as an undercurrent for everything that we're doing, because we're community-based, we're public servants, and we know the importance of it, driving equity as a leader in the industry and also in the city of Austin. We have a focus on charging infrastructure, much like Karan mentioned, and we're number 3 best equipped for electric vehicle charging in the United States. We have over 1,600 ports that are accessible in our public network for 9 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about a penny a minute. And then we also have our DC fast. We've got 30 DC fast chargers on major thoroughfares and for connectivity. Those are about 21 cents a minute plug in, plug out. So we really try to maintain that accessibility and affordability. And we're doing that through our programming of our equity program. We'll have a focus on ensuring we're working with our affordable housing folks who are needing first mile and last mile solutions do a lot of work with that. We also are transitioning our city fleet to electric. We've already got 300 light duty cars on the road. We've got a bucket truck on order, and we are transitioning our Cap Metro, which is our public bus system, to 100% electric as well. And then we are working hand in hand with the school system here in Austin, Texas, to transition them to electric. They will be fully electric by 2035, and that's been a long-term project that's very exciting, and we really feel we can lead by example to the community by promoting this, city assets going electric. Also, the outreach and education is huge. I hope I get a minute to talk to you a little bit about our EVs for Schools program, because we feel that education is everything, and we have a youth leadership development program that we're working through. I hope to touch on that in a moment. And then grid integration, of course, and that's a lot of what is the potential asset to the grid for grid resilience that electric vehicles can bring. And that's, we're doing some testing. We have a commercial sized battery that we are utilizing through our Austin Shines program. We've actually utilized that battery in weather events. It works. So how do we continue to deploy that in combination with solar? We also are doing vehicle to grid demonstrations here in Austin to study and collect how we're going to proceed with that. We also have deployed some pilots around managed charging demand response programs as well, which I really think is going to be the very near future of the focus for the utility. And then just our equity and affordability. I've got 1 minute to wrap this up. EVs are for Everyone is a suite of programs that I developed when I came on board, and it's these things of focus: public transit, which I mentioned, our EVs for Schools program, which combines electric vehicle charging at public schools with electric vehicle education curriculum, which you can get access to your community, build your own EVs for Schools program. I can tell you how to do that as well. It's in English and Spanish. We started in 4 Title I schools here in Austin, and now it's over 150 schools here in Central Texas, and it's across the nation now, with other utilities participating and doing their own programs with this and utilizing that beautiful curriculum. Also expanding our multifamily. We've got over 50% of Austinites that are living in multifamily. We know it's a focus. And then again, we do a lot with electric bikes. We work with affordable housing for first mile and last mile solutions. And we also provide in-person e-bike training with communities and people, and to help them access our city bike share, which is electric. So I think that's a quick little snapshot, and I'll pass it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Amy. Such great work that's happening over there that Austin Energy is doing. If I can invite all of my panelists to come back on camera. If you guys have any questions, again, place them in the comments there, and we're going to get to the Q&A portion. So we do have a question from someone in the audience, Rob Sargent, with Cultura, I believe. Interested in ways that electric utilities can play a role in steering EV development to folks who drive more and face higher fuel costs. There's a value proposition for utilities by redirecting dollars spent on gasoline to electricity and lower rates for all their customers. Does anyone want to respond to that?
I can respond.
Go for it, Amy.
Well, we definitely have a lot of conversations around this, and it's demystifying what it is to drive electric, the cost savings. And I'll give a good example. Let's start with our local school system here that wanted to go electric. So they've been wanting to do this for a long time, had many plans in the works, but they were never able to pull the trigger until we were able to show them the cost savings over the lifetime of that vehicle. And it's incredible for the school system. And so it became a reality for them that they could spend a little bit more upfront, understanding the fuel costs and the less maintenance is really how they're going to get there. We also have a resource that's working with individuals that are interested in going electric and learning more about that EV lifestyle at ev.austinenergy.com. It's an EV buyer's guide, and it breaks all of that stuff down, and it also includes all of the incentives locally as well as federally. So feel free to check that out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Did anyone else have an answer for that?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk a little bit about our affordable public charging program that we're about to roll out. So I think it's been mentioned in the chat a couple of times. I've seen it. I think everyone's aware that it tends to be more cost effective to charge your EV at home if you're in a single family home than it is to charge it publicly. And so at PG&E, you can charge your EV at home for about like $2.90 per e-gallon, compared to in the state of California, our gas is like $4 to $5, so a lot more expensive than across the country. So that is a good price compared to our gas, $2.90 per e-gallon. But at public charging stations, a lot of times the cost is like equal to that of gasoline in California. And so one of the things that we're rolling out in particular for folks that may have higher fuel costs, right, who have to drive longer distances and who have to leverage public charging, an affordable public charging program for customers who are income qualified, where they will get basically a preloaded card. And that card will allow them to get essentially like a discount on public charging. So that will bring down the cost of public charging to be more kind of equitable with what it might be to charge at home. And I think one of the really cool things about that is that we're doing this broadly with the IOUs, the investor-owned utilities across California. And so rather than it just being a program specific to our service territory, it really is going to be somewhat broad across the entire state. So we recently received approval from our regulators, and we're looking to roll that out. I think the one other thing that's really cool about that, and kind of that concept of like transitioning revenues from gas to electric, is that we actually fund it via a program called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard in the state of California, which is essentially a program where we are able to get funding for these programs through let's like kind of like a cap and trade type market, where oil and gas companies are having to pay into that market for like emissions that they have in the state. And so it's a lot, essentially like some of the funding is coming from oil and gas companies to support that. So it's not on customers' bills. So it doesn't impact customers' bills. It doesn't drive rates up at all, but it helps to drive down the overall total cost of charging for our customers. So I think that's something that we're pretty excited about.
Oh yeah, very good. Next question is for PG&E specifically. PG&E has reportedly had striking success with this managed charging program. Can you share what you've learned in rolling out that program, and what has made it click, and what challenges did you overcome, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I saw the question. I'm very curious to hear about the striking successes that we've been having. So I think we have had a lot of uptake in a managed charging program we've rolled out. It's called our EV Charge Manager program. And that's focused on some of the areas of our territory where we're seeing substantial adoption. And the goal of that program is to really understand if we can leverage managed charging to essentially avoid distribution grid upgrades. We've got close to 6,000 customers who have joined that program so far. It's been in the market for a little bit less than a year, maybe like 6 to 8 months right now. And we actually are just about to get our first kind of set of data in terms of like what the kind of before and after, right, of customers' charging behavior. And really kind of the hypothesis there, right, is that by deferring distribution grid upgrades, we're able to invest less to enable more EVs to connect to the system, and then we're able to share that value with our customers. So I think I'd say maybe I'm hesitant to call it a resounding success just yet, until I kind of we want to really see that we're creating the value, right, that we're able to create with that program. But we are really excited to see the amount of adoption from customers, and I think we are able to help them to manage their overall costs just by pulling their charging out of peak times. And I think we're looking to see if we can create even more value once we see some of the results of that managed charging pilot in the coming months.
I love that. Thank you so much. And so we have another question here. It's a statement, then a question from Miguel Martinez. Utilities should treat new meters for EV charging as residential meters, not commercial meters. That was his statement. Are any of the utilities doing that? So answer from any of you.
We aren't, although I say one thing we are exploring is the concept of submetering. And so basically can we leverage the data from EV SPs and basically subtractively bill that from a customer's bill at a multifamily dwelling? And there's a lot of technical challenges that go into that. We've got a lot of work to do with our billing system, but it's one technology focused way we've been looking at, can we provide lower cost, residential type rates to customers at multifamily dwellings?
Yeah, that would be a good one. Anything from Amy or Corinne on that?
I think maybe I'll just quickly add that I guess it depends on where the EV charger is being installed. So, like for example, just because the EV charger is installed in a residential home, doesn't convert it necessarily to a commercial rate or anything like that. So, a lot of our rates, we are regulated by our Public Service Commission, which is a little unique for electric cooperative. But a lot of it's just driven by demand or by the demand in KW, I should say. Just make sure demand's going to be used correctly. But anyways, all being said, a lot of that is just kind of driven by the use case or by the installation and what's kind of occurring at these locations. So I'd say it just depends on the situation in some cases and which rate would be applied to that subsequently. So.
Great, thank you. We have another question here from Janice Ribordi. Do you currently have or plan to launch any incentives for multifamily properties, both new construction and existing properties? And if so, what do those look like? And would you like to collaborate on what the pain points and needs are for affordable, low-income housing?
Sure, I can speak to this. So we started our multifamily program in Austin with a deep incentive of 80% rebate on that charging equipment and also the deployment of the infrastructure. And that really jump-started our programming, which, it was a bit ago. And so what we've done recently is, and we still do offer rebates for multifamily, and we're doing a lot of outreach, focus groups and such to understand the pain points and to really help grow, that we know that is really a critical piece here. But one of the things that we just launched is an 80% rebate, again, kind of mirroring that original one that we did, but specifically for properties that will install electric vehicle car share at their property. And we actually are working with some affordable housing, one in particular, and I encourage you to research it. The property is called the Ivory. It's named after a pillar in the community, in the Black community, who has really advocated for better quality of life. And so she is someone that we honor with this program. But it's creating a mobility hub, and they're having electric vehicle charging combined with EV electric bike share. And then each resident is getting an electric bike when they sign. It's affordable housing condos in a gentrified area here in Austin. And so they'll be getting that electric bike along with some training. And our CAP Metro, our bus system, has created a new bus system that's going to be high frequency that stops right in front of the property. So, we're looking at ways to how do we bundle this and improve quality of life. But the 80% rebate is really to help encourage multifamily to provide these EV car share programs. Part of the requirement is that they will also include at these multifamily sites, not just for the car share, but an additional dual port charging for the other residents, so that we can help promote those that are driving electric and want to have that inclusivity. Some of the programs we're seeing in Austin, I don't know if you all are seeing this in your communities, but we're seeing incentives from the city to reduce parking. And so this is really where we're starting to see us trending with providing just a mobility hub to this ecosystem of transportation electrification.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. Any of our other panelists like to answer that? Okay. We're going to keep moving. We've got a lot of questions here, and you guys keep the questions coming. Whatever we don't get to in this segment, we'll make sure that the panelists get a chance to answer that, and we can get those answers back out to you. So we have another question from David Skakel. Information awareness, or lack of, can be significant barrier to adoption. In what ways do utilities support? It moved up on there. In what ways can utilities support third parties interested in amplifying awareness, either at the national level through associations like Forth and AESP, or at the utility territory level? Using third party. Yeah, go ahead, Lydia.
I'll say, I think totally agree. When we look at some of our lessons learned, I think we have a gap or like an opportunity to continue to drive education and awareness across our communities. So one of the things that we do is we partner with community-based organizations in different communities to get information, education out there. And I think it's like for us, 35% of our budget typically goes to CBOs for marketing, education, and outreach. And so I think we're always looking for folks who can help us to just kind of get more information out there. and encourage folks to join our program. So shoot me a note, I would say, and we'd be really interested in seeing if there's ways to partner or collaborate.
Yeah, Corin, Amy?
The only thing I'd
Yeah,
maybe I think very similar to what Lydia mentioned. Again, a lot of the community awareness and outreach is pivotal. One thing that we've seen actually requested, or kind of in collaboration, I guess, with some of our local dealerships that we serve. There's questions about, if someone is interested in purchasing an electric vehicle, what do they need to do, and from an interaction with the utility perspective. So we've kind of put together like a little one-page flyer for them that they can also help educate potential customers, and in our case, our members, basically, around the steps for that. So I think a lot of that is sometimes driven by the need, and that communication coming back to us, or even through community engagement events. But just one quick example I want to share. Sorry, were you going to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no problem. I know we're all doing some really cool stuff around outreach and education. And, I just think for us, it really is the number one initiative. And I get asked by utilities a lot, how do we start? If you're just getting started, put your focus there on the outreach and education. And that's why we have that EVs for Schools program. We believe that the heart of the community is in our public schools. And so we're working with everything from elementary to high school. And now we're also working with our universities. We have access to some wonderful universities here, our HBCU, Houston Tillotson. We have been working with them for several years, and get to do a lot of outreach with their community, as well as University of Texas and our Austin Community College. So what we find is that, especially young people, they are so aware and understanding of climate, and this is the connection point for them. They know that this is going to be one of the greatest challenges of their generation, and they want to be a part of the solution. And so they are getting this education piece through EcoRise, our partner, and through us. We do a lot of field experiences, and they're going home and educating mom and dad about it. And we've done things too that have made this a lot of fun. We've created a virtual reality that we use in our outreach and education, and we're about to launch an augmented reality piece that we're working with young people on. It's student-led and designed, and it's going to really talk about the history of energy and the past, and then how do we make a better future. So just coming up with creative ways to reach your community, and being persistent. So at any opportunity, we have electric drive in Austin. Some of the communities that are on the line, if you have an opportunity to participate and support and get involved in electric drive and Electrify Expo, I highly recommend. They're actually not in Austin next year. We did it for 5 years, and we have really seen incredible growth here. And I think a lot of it is due to getting those test rides and just hyping that up. We put a lot of effort on that.
So one of the things that I've done for my clients is actually build out PowerPoint presentations for them to show them the potential impact to their energy bill, and also any kind of potential profit that they may make by having EV charging infrastructure at their locations. And I think they shared this with their teams, so everyone within the building, everyone that they work with, could be really socialized around the idea of getting these new chargers and what does it look like for them specifically. So that's something, and working with a consultant or working with your local partners could be a positive add-on for communities to understand, like, what's their investment in this as well. So we've got time for a couple of more questions, and there's one that I really wanted to get to, is wanting to know, how do you create human-centered design programs with an equity focus? How are you all doing that? So I think each of you may have a response to this just because knowing your work, but feel free for any of you to respond to that.
Be happy to start off. As I mentioned in the first slide that I presented as our climate equity plan, we collected 500 hours of community feedback of everyday people. And I really think that that's essential, is in ensuring that we're doing these community assessments and we're taking qualitative and quantitative data and utilizing that to help tell the story. And that is focus groups. That's out in the community, in the churches, in the schools, really engaging on that level, so that we are creating programs that are wanted and needed with the community, as opposed to creating something that we think is a great solution. So it's been, really walking hand in hand with the community in collaboration, to deploy these programs and to build awareness, sense of belonging, and inclusivity.
I think, well, I'll just quickly add to what Amy mentioned. So I know I mentioned kind of like our first kind of delve into public charging, and Louisa County, for reference, it's a little rural. It's kind of located between Charlottesville and Richmond, but again, a relatively rural community, and it is off kind of a major highway. So, after the installation of those chargers, and we kind of attended some of the local kind of business events, and listening to some of the presentations from some of the local business leaders, a lot of them referenced the chargers and the investment that REC was making into their community. So I think a lot of that is driven by, when we try to evaluate our sites and locations to grow our public charging network, I kind of mentioned multifamily dwellings, but also looking at charging deserts. Where can we kind of help bridge the gap and create more opportunities, and also find good locations where people can kind of come and spend time versus just kind of sitting at a gas station for a couple hours waiting for the EV to charge, right? So giving the opportunity, it helps drive up local business. It's kind of a win-win in multiple scenarios. So that's from a public charging network perspective. But then, in terms of like the actual, like, let's say, member facing programs, a lot of, at least what we try to do is survey our membership a lot. So, in the end, we want to create programs that provide value to our membership. If we, the goal is not just create something that no one's necessarily going to use. So a lot of, we do try to do survey our membership a lot. Again, community engagement events that I think Lydia mentioned earlier, are great opportunities to seek that input. But we get a lot of good feedback from a survey. So, for example, we did a survey in 2023. We surveyed 96,000 residential members, and about 13%, 6% responded, which is about 6,000 roughly. And about 13% mentioned that they were interested in joining our EV pilot program, which again was capped, but we're looking to unveil an official program. So again, I think that kind of helps to keep the human-centered design to our program. Again, kind of understanding that we're bringing value to our membership.
Thank you. And so as we wrap up, you all, we've got a couple of minutes left. I just want you to think through, like, what advice, what could you offer to other utilities that are looking to improve their programs or are starting to begin this? And let's keep it short. We've got like 2 minutes and they're going to probably cut us off. So let me start this question with Lydia.
Yeah, I would say, I think one of the things that we've learned, we've deployed a lot of programs, and they're all, I would say, maybe siloed is where we're at right now, right? So we've got like a program that provides a rebate for pre-owned EVs. We've got a program that provides support in installing a charger without having to do a panel upgrade, but they're all kind of like individual programs. And the entire process that you have to go through to install charging, whether it's at a multifamily dwelling, at a single family home, at public charging, is just, like, I'd say, steeped in complexity. And so if I was providing advice to someone who's starting out, and this is something that we're looking into, like, very deeply at PG&E, is like, think about that concept of human-centered design, right? Like, how can you make this as simple of a process for people as possible? How do you pull out maybe things that are in your processes just due to like legacy approaches, right, that don't necessarily have to be there? How do you make it as few steps as possible to make it clear what that value is for the customer, and make it super easy for them to bundle that all together and to get that value really quickly and easily? So I just say, like, simplification, like, reduce the complexity where you can.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Lydia. I think that's great. And I just will add to, again, I want to prioritize outreach and education. That's the focus when you're just getting started out. But also on your end of it, I want you to be kind to yourself, because these projects and programs take time. In order to do them right, you've got to take the time. And I know we want to always rush, but sometimes these projects take a couple of years. So it's a long-term game and commitment. So I would just recommend that slow and steady is going to win the race on this.
Thank you. And last word, Karan.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this quick. So we're actually at this point now where we're trying to develop our official EV program and sunsetting our pilot program. So I'd say understanding our membership and the demographics, if you want to call it, how many EVs are in our system, to help drive that need. Incentives, ensuring our incentives for this program kind of help to motivate or kind of incentivize members to participate. And then the last thing is streamlined enrollment processes. We want to make this as efficient and as streamlined as possible for membership.
Thank you. And thank you to our panelists. And if I can just say, y'all, if we keep in mind, if we solve for those most vulnerable, the rest of the work comes easy. All right, Symbiote, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for leading the discussion and kicking off our webinar season. I want to thank our panelists again. As Pamela said, we did not get through all of the questions y'all had, We will be sharing additional resources. We will have some follow-ups, but thank you all for joining us today. I have included the contact information from our panelists today, and I know you all will take the conversation offline. Like we say, an hour is just, we're scratching the surface, but there is more to get from our panelists. And thank you all so much for sharing about your programs, and again, reiterating why it's important to center communities and the people we are trying to serve with the work that we do. We have our next webinar coming up on May 13th. If you haven't registered for that, we'll be continuing the conversation on building EV-ready communities to accelerate adoption. Our speakers will discuss strategies, programs, and partnerships to expand EV charging. So if you haven't already, please register for that, and we'll be dropping a link soon. And if you haven't already, I started this webinar. Join us at the Roadmap Conference for more conversations like this. Again, we'll have deeper dive conversations at the conference, and I hope we see you all in October. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, afternoon, depending on where you're calling. Thank you all, and have a great day.